Washington Journal continues.
Representative John Larson, Democrat of Connecticut, at our table this morning, member of the Ways and Means Committee. Let's talk about the vote today on this two-year, $80 billion budget deal. How do you plan to vote?
Well, I plan to vote for the bill, but it's interesting how we got here, of course, Greta. And let me start by giving John Boehner credit. I think facing the turmoil and chaos that the House has faced, and then with the rejection on the part of the Republican conference of Kevin McCarthy, and what everyone assumes will be the election of Paul Ryan today by the conference, and then tomorrow by the Republican majority, there's a lot of movable parts and pieces. And one thing I think Boehner deserves credit for is making sure that he paved the way. Now, many thought that that would come either through him by way of an omnibus bill, or, of course, I don't think many could have predicted that he would have resigned. We said off camera before, I think we have to give Pope Francis some credit, not for John's resignation, but I think for setting a tone here in Washington, and perhaps one that will carry over, where I think Speaker Boehner did some deep soul searching and said, look, this is probably the best path for the nation first, but also for his political party to remain relevant and not put the nation through yet another crisis of whether or not government was going to close, whether or not people would be paid and get their checks, and all the uncertainty that exists. And of course, with it, the incredible drama went on with first Kevin McCarthy and currently Paul Ryan, and everything that the Republican conference is currently going through. So amidst that, if you can then come up with a compromise, which shouldn't be a dirty word in Washington, it should be the way that people try to solve problems and solutions and come up with solutions, which is what the American people really want. And so I think this XM Bank vote of yesterday was a foreboding of what was to come, and you saw initially 42 Republicans break rank. And so for the first time since, well, we voted for campaign finance reform back in 2002, we had a discharge petition. And that's very rare, but it just shows you the extraordinary measures that it took to break this gridlock. A visit by the Pope, a resignation of a speaker, a real turmoil within a conference, resulting in the more moderate wing of the Republican Party saying, wait a minute, we were sent here to get things done. And XM Bank, I think, is the start of a movement amongst the Republican conference to say, here's a method by which we can, on issues that are important to the country, and not necessarily specifically partisan, but important to the country, like infrastructure and highway, those aren't Democrat or Republican issues, those are American issues. And I think this provides a formula for us to go forward. And I think, frankly, Paul Ryan, is sensitive to that. So on many fronts, and including this two-year budget, well, it might not be the budget that Democrats would prefer, the alternative was far, and there is a number of things in it, most notably for us, the preservation of Social Security and Medicare in this. And we've got presidential debates that are going on, and one this evening where we're featuring the two leading Republican candidates, one who favors Donald Trump continuing Social Security and Medicare, and one who would abolish it altogether in Ben Carson, who's the new leader in Iowa.
Right.
So may we live in interesting times.
Well, let's talk about, I just want to note for our viewers, Export-Import Bank, the 42 Republicans that went forward with this discharge petition are, as the Paul Kane notes in the Washington Post, the establishment Republicans teaming up with all but one Democrat to approve the renewal of Export-Import Bank.
That's correct.
On turmoil of Republicans, speaking of which, there
127 of them vote for final passage.
Final passage. There you go.
So that swelled when those who had the courage to say, hey, look, this is what we're going to put forward. This is what the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, 127 Republicans, and all but one